Hey there, fellow nomads of lore.
Maestros of mirth and mythology.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Sean.
And we are Mead and Mischief, your home away from no home. So today we're going to talk about the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. This is an epic high fantasy series, and this happens to be our first video that is not Star Wars. So it's a big jump to go from the sci-fi epic of Star Wars over to a high fantasy novel series, kind of like Lord of the Rings, that's got, magic systems in it and that kind of thing. So we're going to kind of talk about our journey coming from being Star Wars fans and what led us being Star Wars and Lord of the Rings fans and sci-fi and fantasy, and what led us both to reading these novels, where we're at in the novels, and maybe a little bit about why you might like them as well. So I'll get started. I've loved Star Wars for a long time. I loved Lord of the Rings for a long time. When the movies came out, I watched them 15 times, literally. Watched the first one probably, I think, 12 times in theaters. Loved those movies.
The special editions.
Yeah. The extended, yes, long movies. Good movies. And then, after high school, I started playing World of Warcraft. Kind of got in a little bit more into that high fantasy. Loved StarCraft as well. I've always loved both high fantasy and sci-fi, but and then I've been reading a lot of Star Wars novels that are extended universe for a long time, and then I've read a few high fantasy things, some World of Warcraft stuff, some Lord of the Rings stuff, some Narnia, things like that, but I hadn't really read a whole lot. I've read some more sci-fi stuff, Warhammer 40K, different things like that, on that side of the realm. But so anyway, one of my wife's cousins was talking about this series and how great it was and how it needed to be. I needed to watch it just because I would love it, or to read it. And so I went ahead and got the Audible audiobook, which y'all should totally check out. Or get the real copy if you prefer to do that. So I started with Eye of the World, and have loved it. I'm 7 books in, and so that's kind of where I'm going to be coming from on a lot of this.
He's the wise old sage.
Yeah. Not quite, but yeah, getting there. I love it though. So, yeah. What about you?
So I started much more recently than Jonathan. I remember back in probably early 90s, it would have been a little bit past when the series started. I remember my cousin reading them, or at least seeing the covers. And I never, just looking at the books, I thought that looks stupid and boring. I have enjoyed Star Wars. I loved Lord of the Rings. I remember the first time I read Lord of the Rings, in junior high or maybe early high school. And it was great. I've never enjoyed medieval stuff. I never enjoyed Knights and Peasants. The Sword and the Stone is one of my least favorite Disney films of all of them. I just am not like...
What about romance novels?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, and is the covers, the older covers for the Wheel of Time books, they kind of look like medieval peasant romance novels. It just never looked interesting to me. And so I never picked them up. And then Jonathan started reading them, which is was surprising to me because of some of the stuff, what he has and hasn't read. And he continues to surprise me. We've known each other for quite a while, which is a good thing. But he started reading them. He kept talking about how great they are. And he told me about the magic system, at least somewhat. And I kept thinking, I don't want to read those. I don't know. That doesn't sound very fun. And then finally, I was trying to think about what to get for my next Audible book. And because I commute, and so I listen to a lot of Audible right now. I have a 30-minute drive every day, so I do a lot of that. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to download the first one. Fine, I'll try it. I might like it. And I listened to the first one, and I quite liked it. There are some things I didn't like and did like. We're going to do reviews of all the books as I read them. I am currently at the beginning of the third book, The Dragon Reborn, and I don't know if I like that book yet. I liked the second book quite a bit more than the first already. It was more interesting, and in my opinion. But we'll get into the specific details of specific books and specific things we like as we continue this series. This series is really fun. We're enjoying it. We're super excited. Here in just a few months, hopefully, there is going to be an Amazon original TV show to go along with it. That could be really exciting. As we get closer, we're going to include our thoughts, our takes, maybe predictions about all of that as we get closer in the future. So I really like the series. Don't be put off by the old covers. The newer covers, even though it's a weird paperback, the newer covers are much, much cooler looking, which is helpful. The magic system's great. The characters are really fun. That's one of the most important things for me is the characters and their relationships. And they're really interesting. There's a lot of cool characters. I think I heard somebody say there's like 1,000 named characters in these books, which we'll talk about the detail and complexity of this world as we continue along. But we think you should give them a chance. Yeah. Don't be turned off by the genre. It's very it uses some fantasy tropes that are common, but it takes them in very new directions. It's very interesting. Yeah. So why do you think they should read it?
Well, now is like the perfect time to start reading it because of the Amazon series that's coming. So that you can get the backstory for the whole thing and then be able to just know what they do. And of course, it's just like anything that they take from a novel and make into TV or movie. It's not going to be as good or it's going to be different. One of the two. Or both. But it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be great. Amazon has a good track record of making great television, and so I think it's going to be good. The books in general, they're just the magic system. I love the characters, like you said. There's some really great main characters, and there's actually several main characters, and several different stories that are followed throughout. People, a group that kind of, like in Lord of the Rings, a group that's kind of on a journey together, but then they end up splitting apart, and then there's tons of different stories going on all at the same time. Lots of really cool scenes that you just aren't expecting. Not quite Game of Thrones, a little bit cleaner than that, but quite really different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just great. I like it a lot.
So you should check them out. Keep watching this series. We're gonna be continuing to read as I read the books. We'll be releasing some more. So since I'm already read the first two, you can be expecting those here pretty soon. Make sure that you like this video if you like it, dislike if you don't. Give us a comment. Tell us whether you've read the Wheel of Time series or not, what your thoughts about it are. And make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell so you get all our latest content. You guys have a fantastic day. Somewhere out in the future.